Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's 7:30. Welcome to the Review Committee on the 5th of October 2021. Before we start the meeting, I'll make the emergency evacuation announcement. Should we be required to evacuate the building, would you please leave the building via the hall entrance doors. Turn right, walk straight past the canteen and through the external doors on the right and out to the car park, which is our assembly point. Please do not delay your evacuation to collect any belongings. Please do not return to the buildings until given permission to do so by council staff. Please note that this meeting will be audio recorded. Would you please switch off mobiles or please turn them to silent? Members, there are 4 microphones on the tables for use during the meeting. When I invite you to speak, please wait until there is a microphone in front of you before speaking, as microphones are needed for the hearing loop and for the audio recording. Please, where possible, assist in passing microphones to each other and use the hand gel and antibacterial wipes on the tables if you do touch the microphones. Members, voting will be done on a show of hands in line with the Constitution. I will ask for a show of hands for and then against recommendations. Those abstaining from voting will be noted by officers. So moving on to agenda item number 1, apologies for absence. Apologies have been received from Councillor Robin Dray, Councillor Gary Myers and Councillor James Newport. Are there any other apologies, members? Thank you. Agenda item 2, substitute members. Councillor Bob Milne will be substituting for Councillor Robin Dray. Councillor Carol Weston will be substituting for Councillor Gary Myers. And Councillor Chris Stanley will be substituting for Councillor James Newport. Are there any other substitute members? No, thank you. Non-members attending, I can see Councillor Williams and Councillor Efday. Agenda item 4, minutes of the meeting held on the 7th of September 2021. Are the minutes agreed, members?
Agreed, Chair.
Councillor Constable. Thank you, Councillor Constable. That's noted and will be amended. Are there any other amendments? Okay. Are the minutes agreed with the amendment proposed by Councillor Constable? Okay, thank you, members. They are agreed. Agenda item 5, to receive declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest, members? None indicated, thank you. Agenda item 6 is the Regulation of Investigatory Powers Act 2000, or the RIPA Act. Members, would you please note that in recommendation 2, there is reference made to section 4.8. This should be section 4.6. Okay, I would now invite the Assistant Director of People and Communities, Louisa Moss, to present the report.
Thank you, Chair. Evening, councillors. So just to reiterate, the purpose of this report, according to Home Office Code and Guidance, is to update elected members on the RIPA policy and also to report on the RIPA activity within the council. And just to summarise report, that our RIPA activity remains at nil over the last year, and the report itself, just for clarity, is as it was last year as well, with the minor amendment of a name change as detailed in the report. I do detail in this report that the RIPA policy itself is due for further review following an inspection in January, and that review is still ongoing, and as you can see, it's tabled as a key decision for later on this month. So the policy that you see appendix to this report itself is the current one, with the only amendment being noted is the name change itself. So I'll just open it up to questions now, if I may.
Councillor Milne.
Yes, I have a couple of questions. One of the main one is rather about RIPO, because we haven't used it for the last 10 years. So my question is that the council's policy is so far been making little use of what's potentially a useful piece of legislation designed for permitting, where appropriate, surveillance or technical support to deal with issues of public safety and the protection of property. And from that point of view, I appreciate the comment that using it disproportionately could lead to problems in the reputation of the council. But my question is, do we not consider not using it at all could also have the same effect if it was not used where appropriate? And the last point I will make is this. At the moment, we were talking last year about a district-wide CCTV system which would have 24/7 monitoring. That is a passive evidence collecting system. So you don't need permissions to use that. You would need permissions, of course, if you used it for anything else for a specific purpose, but the legislation is designed for that. Now, what I'm now saying is that we're not using this, and we have a policy which is tantamount to not using it. And my question is, do you not consider that that in itself is a risk, and perhaps we ought to review that and also do something about the what has now become not a district CCTV system. It's gone back to a couple of parishes. One's already rejected it because of the funding formula. So now we have a problem because we could add a mobile system to that. But of course we can't because we haven't got it. Although we could use smaller systems if we wanted to. Now we've had disorder in Rayleigh, serious assaults, criminal damage, there's graffiti all around the town, and we've had fly tipping, which we've had some success in dealing with directly. But my question is that should we not be considering making slightly better use of it, not overuse, but just now and again where appropriate? Thank you.
I refer directly to direct surveillance, which is RIPA, as you know, which is covert surveillance rather than the overt CCTV. But probably to put the question back, because obviously it does depend under what circumstances you feel we should use RIPA more for. As you know, Councillor, there is a threshold to RIPA for which we have to obviously have regard to, especially around the custodial sentence. And also, obviously, it has to get judicial approval. And I'm not saying we shouldn't use it, but obviously it's under what circumstances we use it, and it's that we have to take into consideration before we do so. And I agree, there are some circumstances where we might consider it, such as fly tipping, using covert surveillance, but as you say, most of our successes so far have been using overt methods, and we're using other methods accordingly. So where we've used it before, as you appreciate, and I think I've mentioned before, is back in 2011, and prior to that has been on benefit fraud, which is now all done by DWP, and they do all the investigatory and collection of evidence and the fraud work for that. So I absolutely understand, but it's under what circumstances we use it for. And to tell you the truth, you know, at the moment, it would be fly tipping. ASB, again, would depend on what public order offences we're looking at and whether the custodial sentence is meeting the threshold or not. And obviously we work in partnership a lot and use other agencies for those actions. So I note what you say, but as you say, we do take each circumstance in its own merits, really, and look at the threshold.
Well, a more minor front, Rayleigh is now suffering from the graffiti artist who's using silver paint and large signatures. Now that's not going to be presumably, possibly result in any kind of custodial sentence. The last time someone was caught doing that, they had a little bit of community service to do. But there are a couple of spots to do with antisocial drinking and the smashing of bottles in play areas, which are dangerous for young children. And those kind of things, we've already got our local police have actually paid casual attention to those areas. But there's a couple of those spots could easily have something that could collect evidence, but there's nothing there. So it just goes on with criminal damage now being formed with these silver signatures appearing. I think I just did Marks and Spencer's the other week. Anyway, thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Mrs Shaw, please.
Through you, Chair, thank you. To Louisa, Appendix A, the very last page, 62.1. Are all these names correct? 'Cause I thought Leslie had left. Or am I mistaken?
She has left, yes,
Sorry?
you're correct, she has left.
Yeah, are all the other names correct on here, or are they all?
Apologies, members, Leslie Athy has left, but all the other names are accurate.
Right, thank you.
Councillor Mrs Macpherson.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a question, Louisa. What is the cost to our council for this? And is there any possibility around sharing the resource and the training with another authority?
The cost of the training that we had last year was for 19 delegates, including all sort of authorising officers, applicants, portfolio holder, and the cost was £1,750 for 19 delegates. And absolutely, there's always scope for economies of scale to share with other local authorities. We carry out our training every 2 years, so the opportunity will be in a couple of years' time to reach out to other partners.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Foster, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a question which may be based on my ignorance, shall we say, of the policies, but and God forbid it should ever be necessary, but in the policy, is there an element covering surveillance of employees of the council?
Good question. I can't answer that. It's not something we've covered in our RIPA policy, that's for sure. And I can get back to you on that, but it's not covered on this policy.
The reason I ask is not just being awkward. It could probably change the context of some of the activities necessary.
Yeah, I'll speak with our HR service and get back to you.
Thank you. No one else is indicating. So, members, there are two recommendations at 10.1 and 10.2 on page 2.3 of the report. 10.1 is proposed that the committee resolves to note the council's annual usage of RIPA. Members, is this noted?
Noted.
Thank you. 10.2, it's proposed that the committee recommends to council that the amendments to the council's RIPA policy set out in section 4.6 above are approved. Can those members in favour please raise their hands? Can those members against please raise their hands? Okay. That, sorry. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay, one abstention. Thank you. That has been approved. Item 7 on the agenda is the key decisions document, and what I'll do is, in our traditional way, is to go through each key decision and ask if anyone wishes to raise an issue or talk about it. So the first one is on page 2 of the report, 0321, the suspension of parking charges on Saturdays before Christmas. Any comments or observations? Okay, thank you. On same page 0421, voluntary sector grant allocations 2022 to 2023. Any observations or comments?
Again, no one is taking, Chair.
Thank you. On page 3, 0821, waste transfer arrangements. Any observations or comments? Okay, thank you. 0921, subject is to agree the changes to the RIPA policy and RIPA social media guide. Any comments or observations? Okay, thank you. 1021, subject is to agree a council antisocial behaviour policy. Any comments or observations? Okay. Thank you. I think that's it, isn't it? Okay, thank you. We now move on to item 8, the work plan. So if we go through the work plan. Okay, so hopefully you've got the email from Sonia. The meeting that's due to be held on the 2nd November is now moved back to the 9th of November, and that will be for the audit, to receive the report on the audit of the overview and scrutiny function. And that report, or the draft report, is in with officers at the moment. So what I propose to do is to organise a pre-meeting of members before, because I think it's going to be something that will be quite meaty for us to get into and go through the recommendations. So it'll be a Zoom call. So that would probably, yeah, Councillor Mrs Mason. Yeah. Okay. On the 30th of November, we will receive the Treasury Management Mid-Year Review Report. We've got holiday in January, but we may add extra stuff in there. 8th of February will be the Treasury Management Strategy Statement. And then 1st of March, we've got the Community Safety Partnership and the Disposals Framework. And I'll be writing out to invite members to form a member working group to look at the Disposals Framework. And then finally, on the 5th of April, we've got our annual report and our engagement with residents and other stakeholders. If you remember back to the last meeting, when we had Mr Houghton presenting about the Parks for Nature, and we recommended that we would have member working groups to look within the wards. That recommendation is going to the executive on the 9th. So hopefully that will get approved, and then we can start setting those working groups up. Okay, Councillor Mrs Shaw.
Thank you, Chairman. Just on your point about the review pre-meetings for members who couldn't attend, I think it's a very good idea that we start these up, so thank you for doing that.
I can't take credit because it wasn't actually my idea. It was from the training, and I suspect that it will come, well, I don't know, but I suspect it will be in the report. But I've personally found it useful.
Yep, thank you, but you instigated it, so thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, members. That is the final agenda item. So the meeting is closed at 17:49. Thank you for your attendance.